Good morning. I guess we will start the session. So today's session is digital business benchmarking. And this is a problem that's common to many clients that I've spoken with, both prior to Business Station and since the Digital Solutions Program has kicked off. And with all the different channels and opportunities and recommendations and platforms, it can be overwhelming to know what to do next. So this session will outline how to put together a digital business benchmarking plan, and that will show you how to look at continuous improvement processes over time for your digital marketing. So a little bit of housekeeping, and then I'll explain what benchmarking is. We'll look at the digital business race planning, and then a continuous improvement process with a 90-day plan. This session is recorded and available via Digital Solutions Business Station YouTube channel, and so you can view it on demand after the event. The resources included in this session are available to those who are registered. You can also get in contact with the team at Business Station for the resources to be sent out to you. And if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. So what is digital business benchmarking? It's when a business looks to say, well, how are we comparing to our competitors? And what is it that can improve our business? What is good, or what is excellence in our field? Fortunately, being online, digital is one of the most measurable mediums available to us. And if we look at the areas for improvement, there's certainly some areas to improve around self-service for your customers and improving the customer service experience, which is part of a process that I'll show you today. Referrals, and certainly building that business development and sales pipeline as part of it. But a lot of it is fixing the leaky pipe, even with the small amount of leads or referrals coming through, is making sure that you're engaging with the customer and nurturing them along the journey to get them to be in regular communication with your business and know what happens next, what to expect, and that there's actually a person at the other end of the system. It's not just a conversion to a sale, their money's paid, and then they wait for whatever the next thing is. In reality, 80% of companies believe that they deliver a good online experience, but the results say only 8% of customers agree. I'm sure we all have experiences where we've had a poor online experience, and it is more common for a customer to put a negative review online when they have a bad experience than it is to generate a good referral. And part of the continuous improvement process is to put that in as part of the lead nurturing process after the sale, after the customer has experienced your product or service, to then ask for a recommendation or referral, either Facebook reviews or Google My Business reviews. And this is it, 84% of people who have had a bad customer experience tell others. So the leaky pipe is around the goals, nurturing a lead from visiting the website to taking an action through to completing the checkout. Hello, Tanya. I can't hear, but basically you are the only participant at the moment, so you get to ask me any question you like as we go along.
Oh, okay. I had trouble getting in actually because I wasn't sure there was an ID and I couldn't find it. But anyway, I worked it out in the end.
You're here now, and so basically I haven't actually got into the meat of it yet. We're just talking about the business benchmarking and why it's important. So as you can see here, the leaky pipe is all about just plugging those gaps along the pipeline to have a little bit of improvement at each step, which then can have significant improvement at the end of the line.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's about reviewing digital performance, identifying gaps, communicating those priorities. It says for improvement to teams or budget holders, but basically when it's a small business, often you are the team and you are the budget holder. So that makes it easier. And having a bit of a plan. I believe, Tanya, I've shown you these before, just starting with your own website, just doing a mobile friendly test. And I think with Google Test, it just does a quick review of how the site performs. And as I believe I said at the start of this session, The resources that I have that go along with this, I'll send out as soon as this wraps up. And that's got some templates available for you as well. So these links here are just about doing a quick benchmark of your own website to identify areas. The great thing about the Google links there is they give you fairly clear recommendations and link to advice for each step. So you don't have to have that strong technical knowledge, but you know when you're either doing it yourself or referring it to a supplier, you can give them some fairly clear instruction as well. So the first step in it would be a SWOT analysis. And so when we look at the strengths, we're really looking at what are we good at? What's the competitive advantage? What resources do we have? And the employees, the assets. And you can see on the right-hand side there, there's some clear things to look at. So the capabilities, whether it's yourself or other people in your team. There's location and geography. Obviously, being a business like yours, it's about that location and geography. You're not going to be servicing international clients, although you could via Zoom. I think what
legislation.
Well, also what we experience here in WA is that Zoom fatigue. Like people, as you can tell from this session, it's only you and me. People experience Zoom fatigue when they've just been pushed to remote working and everything being online. So it's that local geographic area. People want to know that if something goes wrong, they can reach out and they can get in contact with someone in the same time zone. And then the likely returns. And I think many of the businesses I've dealt with, they're paying money for Google ads managed by an external agency, or SEO, or Facebook ads, or they're putting money into a marketing campaign that they haven't actually got the performance results back from, or they're getting told about the costs of their campaign rather than the actual results and the return on investment. So just having that idea of what do those results look like. And once you know where you're tracking with the financial spend, you can measure the ROI and look at things like, are we clearly stating the value proposition online? Is there a funnel that's clear that the customer who visits our site pre-sale knows what to do next, that those leads are then coming through the system? And what we discussed in our previous session, Tanya, was the processes and systems. So mapping out what that looks like and where the visitor arrives to the website and how that journey travels through the website into a lead, and then engaging with them once that lead's come through, right through to the request for a review or a recommendation at the end of that, to kind of nurture that and to build word of mouth referrals. Weaknesses, you can look at the gaps in capabilities. You don't know what you don't know. Any results from online presence or reputation. It's so often that I find people who have a business, but they haven't looked at their Google My Business listing, or they haven't done a self-search or a brand search online to find that there's reviews that need to be carefully managed online. Part of a reputation management process is claiming a Google My Business listing and setting yourself as the owner so that if a review is listed, you get notified by email and you can jump on there and go, thanks for your feedback. If it's positive, you go, we really appreciate that you experienced this and thank you for your feedback. If it's negative, to say that you are open and authentic and transparent in trying to address the issue and taking them offline. So it shows to any other prospective customers that you're proactive in managing your brand and your reputation and you want to deliver good service. Obviously, at a time like this with the impact of COVID-19, there's business continuity issues, supply chain, especially if you're in more of a product based market than a service-based market. But then there is also the thing of, are your customers still able to receive the same service delivery online via Zoom?
By the way, that quote was accepted.
Fabulous. That is great news.
Yeah,
I'm absolutely delighted. We can talk about that after this session wraps up, but that is brilliant. I'm so pleased to hear that. And so as you can see, that's the part of what the challenges are there is, are there strong competitors? What's holding you back? Resources you're lacking. So one of the things we discussed around a CRM, I mean, that's a critical part of it. And I'll do a session on CRM planning in the next couple of weeks around how to evaluate a CRM and what best suits, because really people are different types of learners. Some are very analytical and data driven and want to have lots of filters to get down to the data. Most of us, myself included, are visual. And so we want to see something where we can tactically move the cards along a Kanban style workflow or see in a timeline what's coming up. And then just identifying areas for improvement. So the opportunities are that there are lots of emerging technologies and innovation in that cloud space. Obviously, one of the things for you, Tanya, is that on-demand human resources space. Well, what does that look like when a new startup or a business is looking to build their team, but they don't have the capacity yet to take on a full-time human resources person, and how to value add by just intersecting into businesses, whether that's through an online portal and customer sort of one-to-one interactions and that leadership development, or whether that's actually in with a business to manage the employee engagement or recruitment processes, whatever it might be. And one of the things that we'll look at later in this session is also down the bottom there, on the right, partnerships, agencies and affiliates. So looking at where are vertical markets or opportunities to partner with other businesses that have a strong impact online so that they can drive referrals to you. Might be through directories or Chamber of Commerce or industries. There could be all sorts of partners out there that can really be quite complementary to the problem faced by your customer. And so it's just refining that process down and identifying who those potential partnerships are and exploring how they work. And then the new opportunities becoming available. And that's just making sure that you are aware of what's happening within your industry, aware of what's happening within the administrative or operational side of the business, and capitalizing on those opportunities. Threats are obviously legislative, especially in the space you work in, Tanya, for HR, economy, sustainable financial backing, and that's always a problem for small businesses. Being that this is recorded for posterity, Many Rivers is a microfinance organisation here in Australia, which is very useful for those that are just starting off and needing some capital to start the business. Sustaining internal capabilities. Now, this is one of the biggest threats, I think, to any small business, is being a solopreneur, a one-man band, a one-person band. It's that burnout potential of trying to manage everything from business development to business administration to actually delivering the product or service to every arm of the business. So it's around finding ways that you can mitigate those threats. A lot of that is through those workflows and automations to try and take the administrative burden out of your business and into more of the value being delivered to your customer. And getting the right contracts and partnerships. Obviously, with that that proposal getting approved, then there's a good contract to kick things off for your new business, Tanya. And you can take that as a model to go. Make sure you get some feedback along the way, and know that approach is working for similar businesses, similar organisations. That's fabulous news. I'm delighted to hear that. So this is a really interesting diagram. It came from a website or a system called Smart Insights, and it looks at a SWOT analysis in kind of an upside down way of it's combining the key things that are strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, but then looking at, well, what opportunities do we have to leverage the strengths? And what strategies can we put in place to minimize the threats based on our strengths? So an attacking strategy and a defending strategy. And then in the weaknesses, well, what are the opportunities where we can build and scale our capabilities that we start reducing those weaknesses? And then weaknesses and threats, like what are the strengths that we need to build? And that bottom right-hand corner is kind of the key area the Achilles heel, if you will, for an organization is if it's a weakness to and it's a threat, then it can definitely be a higher risk item and would require some attention. These can be broken up into the RACE methodology that we'll talk about later in the session, and that's a process for probably a much lengthier digital marketing strategy session, because it really breaks down all of the 4 stages of the RACE plan and how you would apply those strategies to make sure that you are defending yourself from any potential threats and building the opportunities along with improving weaknesses. And the steps in doing a benchmarking process is a bit of marketplace analysis. So looking at where the customers come from, why they choose your business. I spoke briefly before about a unique sales proposition or unique value proposition to differentiate yourself. And then looking at what channels do the customers use and what do they prefer? So is there a type of content they prefer? Is it a process of engaging with your business they prefer to jump straight on a phone or put in a form or book a session online with an interactive online calendar? Making sure that you can evaluate or get some feedback from customers and look at other players in the market to see what is getting the most traction. Often for a service-based business, it's going to be firstly the value proposition to go, can you differentiate yourself and do you understand the problem that I'm having? And then, okay, are you going to be available at a time that's convenient for me? So the online booking calendar can be a very valuable approach. And then the audience analysis. So there's customer personas, customer journey mapping. And in fact, this time next week, I'll be doing a session on design thinking for offline techniques for design thinking for online environments. And that's looking at customer journey maps and service blueprints. So kind of simplifying it down to look at what a business process or workflow is and where that customer is involved. So customer journey, the front of house actions that a customer might see, and what you're doing like a duck paddling underwater to make sure that that moves forward to the next step. And if there is a time lag or if there is a big workload in one of those steps, then examining that area of the process in further detail to look at what process improvement can happen there. Auditing the content. I think we talked about this in our last session, Tanya, was really identifying what those search terms are and refining the key landing pages to really highlight the product or service so that the search traffic can go to those sub pages of the site, not all landing just on the home page. And then things like voice of customer tools. Now, this can be in a variety of things. It can be a feedback tool after a customer has engaged with the business, surveys. It can be doing some market research, going out there to people or asking online on social groups to get some feedback around how they perceive your business or how they perceive the industry or the service that you're delivering and what the problem is from their perspective, to see that it does mirror the way that you understand that you're delivering a solution to that problem. And then the user experience analysis of, say, for example, a customer might want to learn online, or they might want that one-to-one mentoring face-to-face or via Zoom. It can be around a potential of having a website that doesn't quite clearly articulate what to do next. So the traffic's coming to the website because we've improved the gap analysis and the search has landed on one of the landing pages, but then the design of that landing page just leaves customers lost as to what to do next. And it's these sorts of psychographic influences. So inside Google Analytics, you can get geographic data around where your customer or where your visitors might be based. You can get demographic data around their gender, around their age group. You can even get some affinity audiences and in-market segments. Affinity audiences are ones that are like green living enthusiasts or movie lovers or 30-minute chefs. They kind of tie into a behavior around what that person's search queries have been about and how that has been segmented by Google. And then the in-market segments, which might be looking for a house to buy or a house to rent or a car or a professional service. And you can see there the fourth item down, affinity. It's looking at the recommendations or endorsements by people who are known by your audience. So it is making sure that that Google My Business listing has reviews there. It's the having a consistent look online so that it's not a sort of trying to navigate through where am I finding the value in a website or an online platform. It's very clearly articulated and categorized into the sorts of help that you offer. And the lead generation process at the top there, reciprocity is a super, super valuable psychological behavior where people will feel that they want to return the favor. If you give them a guide or a document of value or something that they can access that they wouldn't get directly online, that in return, they're happy to give you their name and email, and you can nurture them through that sales funnel. And then, as I spoke about just a little bit earlier through that SWOT, is the online partnership. So looking at affiliates, intermediaries like the comparison sites or directory aggregators, influencers, and we can put a plan together on who those people are and how to reach them. Partners that have linked directories, some are good, some are stuffed with links, so choose wisely. Advertising partners, which might be your Google Ads or Facebook Ads platform, or it might be a media platform. So the print media has their digital arm as well, and you can normally get some reduced costs by doing both print and online marketing. Syndication partners, so finding other online places where your content is valuable. One of the places that I would recommend for syndication is in LinkedIn groups. So especially when it's a professional service sort of business like yours, Tanya, is finding where your target audience go to and doing a bit of analysis to see where those prospects are, and finding the groups on LinkedIn that they are joined. So if you look through someone's profile down the bottom, it will say groups that they are a member of, and joining those groups. First, a little bit of social listening, seeing the conversations that come up, the sorts of information that's shared, the challenges that are shared, the voices who are the most dominant in there, and identifying where your business and service offer fits. And then it's a potential to provide content that will drive traffic to your website from a platform such as LinkedIn that can syndicate the content and be seen as a potential thought leader by providing value that helps solve that pain point. There's also platforms such as medium.com, which is basically like a content publishing platform that is very shareable, it's very indexable, and having the short form of content on a Medium site can then have a link at the end of short form content to your website that has a much more longer form content explanation. It might have infographics, videos, other materials that are of value to the reader. And then we can look at quick site engagement. So the three things to look at, and in a session in coming days, I'll be walking through setting up Google Analytics and the Google Marketing Platform. But looking at Google Analytics, the three key metrics to look at are the bounce rate. So the homepage will often have a high bounce rate because people will predominantly end up on the search page. It's the page that's going to get the most traffic, the most impressions from traffic. And so it will be highest ranking out of the pages on your website. But it also has a high bounce rate because regardless of what the person searched for, they're then presented with a site which, unless it's got a very clear action to undertake, people look through the navigation. Does the navigation links, do they make sense for what I'm looking for? Has it communicated to me? I've already typed in a search term, so I'm expecting to find a result that's tailored for me or personalized to what my query was about, rather than having to find my way through a navigation menu to get to that content again, to see if it's relevant, to then find a contact page. And so it's just making sure that when you get the traffic to your site and you segment the traffic, that you know, okay, well, these search terms are landing on the right landing page or service page to address that customer need. And how long are they staying on the page? So average time on page or average time on site. So the average time on page is a good indication for engaging with an article. And there are tools on a lot of web platforms that can indicate the length of the content or approximate reading time. And that's very useful for looking at how long are people engaging with the content versus the actual length of it, because people will skim read. In an analytics session, we'll look at the patterns people browse the web, and often it's an F pattern where they'll skim the navigation at the top and the left-hand column for any key links or resources, and then just out to main headings as they scroll down the page. So in the shape of an F, if you look at the heat maps, you'll see people are very much just looking to quickly scan content and see that it relates to what they're looking for. The pages per visit, and so that's kind of an overall benchmark for how engaging the website is. So how many pages are people visiting in general? Are they clicking through for more content? Are they looking to navigate through a multi-step process? It can also be that if you're writing long-form content, there are tools that can break a piece of content apart into sections. So next page, previous page, and you'll see some content aggregator sites that do this quite cleverly by, top 10 something something, and then they count from 10 to 1, and you click next to count down to 1. They're getting 10 clicks for that one piece of content, even though there's 10 very brief elements, an image and maybe a small paragraph of text. So those sort of little hacks, it still has to provide value to the visitor, that it's something they actually want to find out about, not just for trying to generate higher engagement. And the segmentation. So when we go to the session on Google Analytics, we'll look at how this differs between the visitors. So new visitors versus returning traffic. Obviously, new visitors finding the site for the first time versus when someone returns, where is it that they're going? What did they find valuable last time that's brought them back to the site? The search queries that brought them to the site, so branded search versus non-branded search. Say, for example, Tanya, with your business, Sapien Dynamics, it's harder when it's a new business, but as you get traction and if you find the search terms are listing Sapien Dynamics or another branded term, then that's often a great idea, that a great indicator, that your brand is getting more recall and recognition. So people are typing it directly in, they're typing in either your domain name for direct traffic, or they're typing in your business name that will then bring your website up as the first result. And looking in Google Analytics about the different channels. So seeing where the traffic comes from, whether it's from an email campaign you've sent out, whether it's from social media, paid ads, organic search, and breaking it down into source and medium. So different sources, so the different search engines, different social media channels, and all of that is quite easily identifiable and can be displayed in a reporting dashboard through Google, which we'll do in the next session. And then if you have a customer portal, or if you have some sort of account page, identifying customers from non-customers. So it allows you to really know, okay, well, this one's already a customer, so we can separate that traffic to what are our customers engaging with, and then the ones who aren't yet a customer, and how are they engaging with the site? What's the difference between the two, and how do we get them to shift over to actually being in that other bracket of being a customer? And we've spoken about the homepage entrances. So looking at where people enter the site, what URL do they land on when they first arrive, and what's the bounce rate on those? So hopefully they're going to a landing page that has a very clear call to action above the fold, so it's visible on screen when they first load up the page. And that says, we know why you're here. We know what the problem is and we can solve it. This is what you need to do. This button here, click it, and it takes them to the next step of that customer journey. And then there's internal capabilities. This is kind of designed around more of a team environment, but then you can also look at how to find the right vendors or partners for the business. If it is just yourself, no small business owner wants to hit that point of burnout because, you know, if you stop, the business stops. So in larger companies, there's an issue of who and when, and making sure that there's an assignment of action. So rather than just saying, here's all the things we need to do and putting it on a list, is actually having it assigned to, here's what we need to do and when we need to do it by. So how often are you going to be checking for reviews? How often are you posting content? How often are you taking time to review any issues that have come up with the website, or looking at a process that's got the wrong framework listed there, not the Web Insights one. We're looking at the race planning framework next. And this is the model. So 4 steps in the race funnel. There's some steps before here, the planning stage, which we'll look at in a minute, but essentially the funnel for race is building customer awareness. And so that's through improving search performance, whether that's on page or off page. It's looking at the actions when someone arrives on the site. How do you get them to engage with the site? Rather than bouncing off just from landing on whatever page they arrived on, is having a very clear call to action, having the next step that will drive at least a click. And ideally, say if there is using the reciprocity model, there's a lead capture to download a checklist, you just ask for the name and email. And at least that way, if they get past that point, they download the resource or they haven't done the next step, then you can put marketing automation in place to go, thanks, Tanya. We hope you're enjoying the free checklist we provided to you. Would you like to book a session to follow up on the advice that we gave them? And that can be part of the nurturing process through to acquiring a customer. So whether that's on a landing page to book and pay for a session or buy a product, or deciding what that goal is for your particular business case, that is a conversion point for that customer, that they have decided you are the business we want to choose. And then that 4th step, the engagement stage, is building the customer relationships over time, increasing things like the lifetime value of a customer, the average order value, and the simple act of actually asking for a review or a referral can drive so many more reviews and so many more referrals. It just builds that advocacy and it creates that customer loyalty that then someone will be in one of their social networks, online or offline, and one of their connections says, I've got a problem with this particular part of my business or part of whatever my daily life is that the product or service matches. And those people become the advocates for your business and say, have a look at Sapient Dynamics. I know they've got a solution that's going to fit. I dealt with Tanya. It was a great experience. She really helped me work through that contract negotiation process when I was onboarding my staff, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really, it starts feeding itself, and you'll see some of the bigger businesses, once their social media accounts start growing, that those customers will be on there advocating for the business around the clock. So it's kind of a free reputation management tool, because rather than you having to monitor all day, every day for customer reviews and make sure there's nothing negative being posted online, the customers that have had that great experience are the ones that are going to respond and mitigate some of those low-level issues until you're back online in the morning and go, thanks so much for the feedback, and you can take that conversation offline and address any issues, which there won't be any, because I'm sure your service delivery is fantastic.
Hopefully.
So the Brace plan is actually part of a broader plan called the SOSTAC methodology, published in the 1990s, would you believe? So here we are 30 years later, and this model still is used, and it is very effective. And that model from PR Smith was embraced by a British guy, Dave Chaffee, who set up a company called Smart Insights. So smartinsights.com is where I found this methodology originally, and I don't even know in my massive collection of books where the SOSTAC methodology book is, but I have a lot of resources from the Smart Insights website, such as this one, which is the Digital Marketing Strategy Guide.
All right.
So there are paid memberships on there, but there are also some free resources as well. And you can get a lot from their blog content and the various general information they give on there. But let's have a look at this. So the SOSTAC methodology, I was going to have a diagram on here, but I obviously missed that slide. SOSTAC stands for Situation Analysis, Objectives, Strategy, Tactics, Actions, and Controls. So the situation analysis is essentially what we're doing in this session, where we're looking at, okay, where are we? What are the benchmarks that we set? And then the objectives, what are we trying to achieve and who's it for? The strategy is how are we going to do that? The tactics are what channel, the actual implementation side of things. Actions being that it's assigned to someone, when it needs to be done, how it's going to be done, who's going to do it. And then those controls, which almost should be at the start, but it is a circular continuous improvement model. The controls are things like Google Analytics and KPIs and measuring performance so that in this cycle that's gone around that we have actually improved and by how much, and where are areas that we can capitalize on to keep improving, where are areas that haven't moved at all that we can really start shifting in. And so it just, instead of trying to do all things at once, it allows you to really look at just improve one part of the process at a time. And these are the sorts of activities that would happen throughout a race plan. So that first reach of integrating campaigns from search and social, that it's all on a landing page around a particular service or a particular event or a particular product, boosting that organic visibility by making sure that the SEO, the on-page SEO and technical SEO issues are addressed with the website. And that can be anything within the Google's 11 secret herbs and spices that they use to work out their rankings. Things that are the more modern factors are things like the first contentful paint and the time for the page to load. So how long is it taking for the web server to respond and load the site, including all the visuals? How long does it take before someone can interact with the site? And those first couple of seconds are the most crucial. So that's around the technical performance, both from website hosting and the actual platform used to deliver the website, along with the structure and any scripts that might load or delay the loading of a web page. Boosting organic visibility is making sure that you've identified what are the key search queries that your customers are looking for, and having a consistent use that is applied across the headings, the title of the page, the right density in the content, and that it's really well structured to address those customer needs. And other factors that affect the rank is the things we spoke about before: bounce rate, dwell time, and number of pages. All of those are signals to Google to say, this is valuable to what we search for. This is relevant. This is actually something that I want to go back to. And then you can also look at the cost-effective paid promotion. So small businesses, it's something that would need to be managed to make sure it is providing return on investment. And that's looking at the total cost of acquiring a customer. So cost per acquisition, how much did it cost in all my marketing efforts to get that customer, and how much profit am I making? So I know that it's actually worthwhile. So that's just getting the traffic and getting the visitation up to your website or to the primary source of truth. And then there's ACT, which is the interaction. So getting the right customer journey, knowing why, when they've come from search, what they search for, what their needs are, how you solve the problem. That's that landing page design and optimizing the lead generation process. Creating audience engagement. So obviously, as we spoke about earlier in the session, people are different types of learners. Some people engage with visual content. Some people want to see the stats and the numbers. Some people want to read. Some people want to engage and interact. So it could be that a web page can repurpose the same content that is both a long form text content to a video to an infographic to a filter or widget that you can adjust or customize to suit your own needs. And then you're catering to all those different audience styles. And the implemented personalized follow-up is around that marketing automation to go, once they've got through that first step of lead generation, you have name and email to go, thanks for downloading the resource that we provided to you. Here's how else we can help that's related to that particular problem. So there's, as you nurture them through that funnel, and we're getting towards the bottom half of the funnel now, it's converting those leads or those downloaders or those people who have interacted with something on your website to then convert that into a sale. And so that can be putting a proposal forward to the customer or providing more information first about a product, then a proposal, and that quote or proposal being signed off, as it was today. Was it this morning?
Yes. I noticed it this morning. I think it came yesterday.
Fantastic.
I did get the other job yesterday as well, by the way. The one from the web.
You're going to be busy.
Yes.
Fabulous. What a great problem to have. And
which means, because I was thinking, oh, I'll spend the next month doing all this stuff because I've probably got lots to do.
Well, no, look, I think we said this in one of our chats, like, how do you eat an elephant?
Yes.
One at a time.
Exactly. And reminding myself.
That's the whole point of this session, is really about going, don't try and do everything and, oh my God, I've got all these things to do. What's the first thing? What's the problem that you're having? Is it about getting your site and your brand seen online to get traffic to the website? Is it about, okay, I'm getting traffic, but I'm not getting leads. So let's look at those, making sure the traffic's landing on the right page, that there's a lead capture process to drive leads. It can be around that, as we see in section 3 there, creating a great customer experience. So we've talked recently about a CRM and being able to look at, let's say someone calls on the phone, and if you've got an omni-channel marketing solution, you can track even the phone calls to know this is, the telephony can say, this is this customer who's calling. You go, hi, great. You can see all their interactions, any phone calls, emails, what they bought, when they bought it. Yeah. That's kind of for Ron. That's a much bigger approach, but just that first great customer experience. And as a solopreneur or a small business owner, when it's just yourself, it's really about creating human connection, because there's so much white noise online. It's really about, we're not just creating value from the service delivery and the price, but it's about, okay, well, Tanya understands my business. Tanya understands more than just what this needs to be, but about the actual context and the operating environment and the culture of the business to really fit in and deliver it in a way that just we wouldn't be able to find anyone else to do it that well. And then it's about the multi-channel sales. So are your customers looking to solve that problem through more than one platform, and how do you make sure all of those platforms, whether it's LinkedIn or search or another social media network or a partner site, is actually driving and communicating a consistent message that gets people to the right section of the website and through to that sale. And the last step, which I'm sure you're excellent at, is engage or engagement. And so that's really about the marketing automation and following up, making sure that the customer experience was exceptional. You can have a little survey. I think a lot of marketing systems have an email that have a smiley face, a neutral face, and a sad face. And it's like, it's a very general but very strong marker to indicate. You can look at a pie diagram and have 3 segments and know, okay, well, the segment I want is that green one where everyone's going, that was awesome. Yeah. And having a call to action where they go, thanks so much for the opportunity to deliver this to your business. Please, here's a link to our Google page. I'd love you to leave a review, an honest, authentic review. And then that notifies you with an email because you've registered as the owner of that Google My Business page, and you can comment back and say, thanks, it was a pleasure working with you. We look forward to helping you out with any of your other HR needs, or words to that effect.
Okay.
So obviously I'm going to give a slide deck at the end of the session, so don't feel you have to scribble everything down.
Good. I was going to ask you that question, and then I've been taking some snapshots.
You'll get a PDF copy of this along with some of the templates. So the race planning and a couple of other things that I've got, a digital health check document, which is an Excel document where you can punch in yes and no, and it will give you an idea of areas to improve. But this is something that I presented in a talk at the WordPress meetup here in Perth around race planning and what that looks like, and breaking each of the 4 stages down into what are the success factors, what are the things we need to do, what's in the marketing mix at each of those stages, the deliverables that I might do or an individual might do, and then what do we measure? So success for Reach is boosting that organic visibility, doing promotions that drive traffic to the website that are cost effective, low cost, low or no cost ideally, and integrated campaigns where you can have all of the systems talking from the promotion of content that goes out onto social media channels with a social media management tool that then drives traffic to a website for a particular landing page or a piece of content that then drives leads to then put into a CRM to then be followed up and automated with that nurturing sequence of welcome emails and follow-up emails. And the key deliverables at this stage are that key phrase gap analysis. So what are people searching for versus what's your site ranking for? And are there any missing keywords that are the opportunities that aren't there? Are there influencers out there? So who's actually the dominant voices within the topics that you're talking about, and where are they? How do you engage with them, and having a bit of an influencer strategy? And that campaign plan of going, okay, well, what are the key events throughout the year? It might be that, is there a period in the year where your potential customers are deciding on their budgets and allocating budgets for services? And is there a period of time where you might need to be front of mind for that customer when they are looking at allocating their budget, so that it's, they can come and say, okay, well, how much is this going to cost? We can look at ideally you get a preferred supplier arrangement with some customers so that they don't even need to go to market anymore. They just call you up and go, we need your services again, let's go. And you're back in business. Are there key events like the end of financial year, New Year, Christmas, Easter? Are any of those seasonal events relevant to the business, and what content can you create around that creates an emotional connection? So it's not all just business, but you understand that there's a human at the other end of this digital connection, and how do you fill that emotional need for them? What's it like for someone who has that business problem at a particular time of year? Tax time, financials, is there any advice in that space you could help? Is it what were the challenges at the end of the year and some New Year's resolutions that none of us keep? Or is
too much drinking and issues?
Yeah, well, it's not just, you might be looking at something like Find Your Fit. It might be great that you make all these New Year's resolutions to not drink as much and exercise more and whatever the other ones that we do, but also around how fit is your business? Like, what is it that you're good at? What is it that you love to do and are passionate about that has driven you to be your own business owner? And what are the areas that you're not as good at that you need help? And how are you going to get that help? Is it going to be through professional development for yourself? Do you have capacity to do that? Is it about finding someone who is a good partner for the business that can provide an on-demand service? Is it around going through a process of bringing someone in-house in a particular role and defining the role in the contract? So there's different approaches to what those problems are and when, that you might look at a schedule throughout a 12-month cycle to know what sort of content is most relevant to that target audience at that time of year, and looking at the key metrics. So unique visitors, the inbound links, so that's your off-page SEO. How many other websites and online sources are linking to your site? And then how much is your audience growing? So whether that's your social media followers, or whether that's an email marketing list, whether that's a customer database or a lead database is looking at that growth over time, measuring what is the period that we're looking at, 30 days or 90 days, what's our audience like, and have we actually grown that? So what's the effort been to grow that percentage of our audience versus the time, effort, money that's been put in prior to that? Now, the next step, once we've done that and we're looking at a website that's getting lots of traffic and we need to drive that to generate leads for the business, the success factors, the things we need to do are looking at the customer journey. So when someone arrives, they are on the right page, they've seen the right message, they know it solves the problem, and how do we take them through a value proposition that says, I'm in the right place, the problem is understood, the solution is clearly articulated, I want to take the next step. What sort of content supports them making that decision? Is it white papers or checklists or blog content or long form content? What is that person looking for that you can create content that supports that decision-making process? And then the welcome journey, when they do get through that lead generation process, is to say, thanks so much for downloading this. Thanks for sending us your details, schedule a time, whatever that next step is, that there can be an automated sequence that just responds and says, we hear you, we're so glad to be involved, this is what's going to happen next and when. And that's so often missed, where it's a, thank you for your inquiry, we'll be in touch soon. And that's the most generic response you can get off a form. Doesn't really say anything around what it was that I did or when I should expect a response or in what form I should expect a response. And so it's really just making someone comfortable that, okay, we've understood your problem and we've communicated that we can fill that need well, that you've taken an action. And then let's not just drop the ball there. Let's then look at, okay, perfect, you downloaded this thing, you might also find these things useful, or the next step will be, we'll call you within the next 24 hours, or you can book an appointment online here, or whatever that process is, to really just nurture that customer to the next step. And so that's targeting and segmentation. So looking at the new visitors versus returning visitors is looking at people who have engaged with, say, email marketing content, or people who have come from social media, those that have come from a branded search for Sapien Dynamics or a general search. And that's fairly easy to do through some filtering and reporting within the Google marketing platform that we'll cover in the next session. The on-page optimization is knowing what those key search terms are that are driving traffic and making sure that there's that landing page that addresses those, and the content structure in terms of titles and headings and descriptions and the meta tags and the actual density of that keyword in the content is optimized to maximize the search performance, and planning around what sort of content supports this, the campaign planning side. And so customer journey map is part of the design thinking session I'll be running next week, and how that translates into a combined with a business process map to be this broader thing of, this is the customer's experience, this is how we engage with our customers, but back of house, these are the things, the processes we do that support that journey to get them through to the end goal. Landing pages we've spoken about, and then looking at those landing pages, what is the conversion rate? How many leads are you getting versus the number of visitors to that page? How long are people spending on the site? And are there likes, shares, comments? Are people engaging with the content? Are they finding it valuable enough that they share it to their social networks, or they forward it to a friend's email, or comment to say, that was really useful? And even the simple action of a like is still enough to reduce the bounce rate on that page, because the visitor's taken an action that has said, okay, I've got to this page and I've still clicked something. So simple things of those social sharing tools can really reduce the bounce rate and improve performance overall. The convert process is, we've got people to the website, we've got the leads through. What is it that we need to do to nurture them to a sale, to become a customer? And so CRO stands for conversion rate optimization. And so that's looking at what's working on the landing page and what's not, and tweaking those. The customer experience, so how that customer is, what are the customer touch points? How are they perceiving the brand, and when do you engage? Looking that it's a consistent approach across all channels, and then driving that through the process of personalizing the customer experience. It can be as simple as, let's say your website has a customer portal. In fact, no, let's even go back a simpler step. Segmenting a website to be a new visitor or returning visitor. If we identify that when they arrive on the site, you can, if it's a new visitor, you can go, hi there, welcome to our site. If it's a returning visitor, you can go, welcome back, we're glad to see you again. So you can set dynamic text. Now, this is something that isn't going to be in the next Google Analytics session, but within the Google Marketing Platform, there's a tool called Google Optimize, and that allows you to do split testing. So you can have two different variations of content, whether it's a single element, and Google will replace the text there to say, hi, or welcome back. So it's those very simple actions that you can take that can just make a visitor feel that you know who they are, they're back there. You can even go as far, if you went right down the rabbit hole on the personalization of knowing the sorts of content, the tags or the categories that someone's visited previously, and then that becomes the most prominent content on the pages that they visit. Or you can see it through remarketing of someone's been to your website, you've got a pixel for, say, Facebook or Google or LinkedIn or any of your other social media networks. And then on that channel, they're seeing one of your campaign ads that's related to that topic or that problem or that piece of content on one of those external channels that then has the potential to drive them back to your site. And then the key metrics are really around that sales and revenue growth and average order value. So looking at what is the main revenue driver for the business, and is there any opportunity to upsell or cross-sell services or a value add? You know, what is the perceived value of something that you can add where the actual value is quite low? So a customer can perceive that they get this additional support, or they get these additional library of resources or something that is so valuable to help them with the problem, but the actual cost of delivering that is super low. It's either something that's already pre-built and you can just add that, bolt that on as a value add, and they perceive it as whatever retail costs you might communicate that as, but the actual cost of you're not having to redo the same activities again and again and again for each customer to add that value. It's already there, and it can just be scaffolded on like a tiered or freemium pricing model where, okay, well, if you go for this, then you'll also get, say a premium client will get 24/7 support or service, or it might be access to the leadership transformation series of an online course you put together that guides people through that service or supports their development in undertaking those activities for the business. Whatever it is that you can see has a potential benefit to that customer and is aligned to that revenue driver, the product or service that they buy the most, helps drive the sales, helps drive revenue by just value adding along the way. And that helps to really create that improved customer experience, because they go, not only did they understand the problem, not only did they solve the need, but I also got all of this extra stuff that just has really supported my understanding of what the challenge is and how to make sure that I can put this in place. So there's a strange psychological strategy of where traditionally people would say, we know about all these things, and you know, if you need this level of information, then here's our services, here's our pricing. Whereas there's almost a belief or an expectation that you can share everything, and people will either go, wow, you know all of that and you're willing to share it with me, you must have all this other information. Or they also go, that is great information. I'll go away and I'll try that. And then they either can succeed in doing it themselves, or often they come back and they go, actually, that was much more complicated than I thought. Can I get you to do that for me? And, you know, the service-based approach where you're creating value for someone who might not have the budget by saying, here's how I'd approach it. Here's a great methodology or framework to use and the steps involved. They go, cool. Is that enough for them to go on with? More often than not, they'll go, awesome, that makes sense, but I don't have time to do it. I need to outsource this or find someone who can do it for me. Hey, Tanya, that framework was great. Can we get you to deliver that service for our business? And so it's just that, you know, the front of mind resources that you can deliver to both existing and potential customers that can then drive referrals, word of mouth, repeat business, and increase that sales and revenue growth. And this is my favorite part of the race plan, which is all around the customer satisfaction, the you know, improving customer experience, because as I was saying at the start of this session, you know, that it's so much more likely that someone is going to complain on a public forum, a social media account about a bad experience than they are about delivering a review or a recommendation for a good experience. It can shift, but it's really important to have that customer experience defined about what opportunities there are, what support and customer service processes are in place if someone feels that they don't have enough information, or they're not satisfied, or they are satisfied, but they want to make sure things are in place. And it's just about that repeat purchase, referral growth, and customer satisfaction rating. So you can see that not only are you building the business, you're building revenue, but you're also building advocacy and brand loyalty, that people go, they're out socially and they say, oh, you've got the same problem I had. Here's where you need to go. Don't bother with all the searching and comparing and calling and getting all of these businesses to pitch to you. Just cut out all of that time and effort and go here. And that's the best. The word of mouth referral marketing is one of the strongest parts of this. And a lot of that is around social proof, the social media amplification. You can see in each the success factors, social media amplification, the marketing mix is around social media marketing. The deliverable is a social media plan. It's all around marketing or content that addresses the customer needs, and that there's also social proof. So that can be review sites, Google My Business, Facebook reviews, looking at how much the business engages with the online community that they've created, if they've got a large page. I've gone to businesses where I go, cool, this is the product or service for me, and they've got a big page, and then hang on, it was February 2019 when they last posted something.
Yes, I've seen that lots of times.
And you go, I need to check if they're still in business, and go back and look to see that, you know, is there actually anyone there? Is it all on autopilot and they've all gone off to the Bahamas on holidays? Or is it a service that is
a stash of cash?
Yeah, if I buy if I pay for a subscription model for something online and I have a problem with it that I need resolved, is there a support process? How responsive is the support process? And it's hit and miss sometimes. And that email communication strategy, so that can be really part of that customer journey, is mapping out what does a customer need to know and when. Let's not bombard them with all the information at the start, but know where are they at along that journey? What is the point at which we need to communicate with them what the next thing is to make them comfortable? And that's the emotional needs of feeling safe and secure, and can trust that I've informed the customer what's going on. They know what's going to happen next, when it's going to happen, if they need anything in the meantime, how they can, what resources are available to them. I worked with one business where they had all of their marketing automation set up sometime previously, but hadn't had anyone look at it. And then they had spent all this effort in trying to nurture or trying to generate leads, get the lead through, nurture it into a sale, as soon as that sale went through, this customer got 5 or 6 quite detailed emails and then radio silence. And it's like, well, there's too much information in one hit. And then it's kind of like, cool, we've got your money. See you later. I'm thinking it needs to actually be identified as what is the content, what is the information that they need in very, very simple terms. It might be, here is what the part of the problem from a customer perspective is at each step. This is the information they need. This is the format or the channel or the timing that best suits that need. And then just designing that so that it's on autopilot, but it's also managed autopilot, where you know that we're going to send this out. If I start getting undeliverables or, high bounce rate, or if things are trending in the campaigns that say people aren't engaging or the performance is decreasing, that you're aware of it because you're getting alerted and you can look at that particular part of the process. You're not there trying to hold on to all the strings and wonder which one do I need to pull next. You know, here are the things that have popped up and said, these are the issues to be addressed. And you can just massage that part of the process, plug the holes so that you have that continuous improvement process and the pipeline staying full without you burning out. And this is why I say I'll provide the slide deck afterwards. I don't expect you to read through this, but I've broken down the key metrics across the race plan. So the tracking metrics, the performance drivers, and so that's mainly about engagement, customer-centric KPIs, so customer satisfaction, lifetime value, loyalty, and then the business value is, I've still got pounds because you can tell it's from an English site. The revenue per visit, the sales growth, looking at revenue per channel or product category, share of voice, getting partners, news sites, directories, getting some word of mouth or online referrals shared across social media, shared across blog sites, shared across industry association updates, whatever it might be around your target audience and where they are online, that you're getting a broadcast message out from people who advocate for your business to communicate with their network, and you get that virality, that a broader audience share because your message is being spread by your customers rather than just yourself. And so it's basically those metrics break down into 3 categories: the brand measure, so the brand or key phrase mentions, share of market, and the content performance, so how well is the content related to the search terms, which we've discussed, and driving those interactions, likes, tweets, shares, comments. The commercial measurement, and that's around the leads, the sales, and the revenue growth. And that essentially is it. So that is all of the different elements that we've discussed in that race plan in a structure that you can see each activity does have some place in an overall digital marketing strategy. These are the areas that would combine a comprehensive digital marketing strategy. It's probably too much for a small business because there's some areas that probably take more time. You're too busy trying to actually run the business than do all of these tasks.
It does seem overwhelming, I have to say.
Well, I just thought I'd show this to see that there are elements here, but we've covered in the simplified version above and in the resource that I'll send via email, it does cover most of this very simply. So it's not as big a challenge as it might seem. It's just about considering things like knowing what the objectives are, rather than just running a business for a business sake. What is it that what problem are you trying to solve, and who's the problem for? And then a strategy around how do you solve that problem, and who is it that the problem is for? Where do they try and find a solution to the problem? That's 1.4 segmentation. Where do they go to find a solution? What are the resources or the avenues they go down there? When they do find you amongst their search, Are you clearly articulating what it is that you do that differentiates yourself? So that online value proposition, and then that's all the planning stuff going, okay, we know who the customers are, what we do, why we do it, and that we can clearly articulate that online. We do it so well then that we can now look at, okay, well, what's happening in search and on our website and social media channels, what is the trend in terms of the keyword searches or key phrase searches? What channels are working well? Why are we paying Google Ads if no traffic comes in? Or why are we paying, why are we doing this? Looking at where is the return on investment that is the quick win and the low cost, so that you get a maximized return on investment for the effort. And then when they get to the website, have you clearly gone, okay, well, we already know who you are. We know what the problem is. We've articulated that we can solve the problem. Let's continue that story that these customers engage with when they get to the website to go, so glad you made it to this information that can help you with problem X. Here's what we think would be the appropriate next step, downloading this checklist, booking a session, whatever it might be, and then guiding them through that with the right content. And that just goes from a sequence of, in a traditional pipeline, you've got 3 stages: information qualified lead, to marketing qualified lead, down to sales qualified lead. So when they start the journey, what information do they need? What's the critical thing they're looking for that solves the problem? If they download that and you go, you're now at the next step of what value proposition, what is our approach to defining the problem and the product or service that can help solve that problem? We can send that, engage the client in that point of marketing. And when they go, that's really great, I want to know more, I want a walkthrough, I want an idea of how I get started, then they're in that sales qualified part of the funnel right at the bottom that you then can convert to a paying customer. So it's not a something that needs to be in depth and over multiple pages. It can be a simple living document of going, okay, this is the customer, broadly speaking, this is what pain points they have, how we solve them, and our messaging looks like this. We know what they search for, we know where they go. Our plan is that we'll go there and we'll give them content that will help them understand more context around that problem and how we address it, and drive them to us and our branded owned media assets. So hopefully that's not too much. The 90-day plan I'll send as a resource afterwards, and basically the slide hasn't appeared for it, but it's a 3-step process: 30 days in one part of the activity in the race plan, 30 days in the next part of the race plan, and 30 days in the third part of the race plan,
right,
so that you can look on a quarterly cycle throughout the year. Over a year, you can have 4 checkpoints to go, how well has my business performed over the last 3 months from a customer journey lead generation perspective? How much has it driven revenue? And so you have that continuous improvement, but rather than trying to do everything at once and say, did we get anywhere? Did we get anywhere? It just filters down to month 1. Let's look at improving our awareness, brand awareness online with SEO and finding out our customer and what they're searching for. Month 2 is let's look at improving that conversion rate, that our website communicates that same value proposition. Month 3 is, okay, well, we've communicated that, we've got the leads through, what do we need to do to get them to become a customer? Whether that's through supporting content or whether that's through booking sessions, what are the steps or the activities we can create to turn that lead into a paying customer? And then you're at the end of that first month and you've got those 3 phases done. As you start back in that cycle and you're looking at that first month again, you've got the engagement of, okay, we're creating brand awareness and we're engaging with our existing customers. And so you can just take one activity in each of those quarters based on where you feel the pipeline needs the most effort, rather than trying everything at once. That's pretty much it.
Cool.
I will have to look at, where are we at for time?
116.
116. Is there any questions? Is there anything that you want me to cover in what's been...
There is one thing that I sort of get, you look for the questions that people are asking on Google so you can understand what is driving their searches. You know how we went through that process, how they're searching for different things. What I don't understand is if they do a search on, how do you write an employment contract? Obviously, I'm going to have EmploySure and a few others come up first, and HR department who have got Google Ads and all sorts of things that are connected. EmploySure is one of the highest listed ones there. But I don't understand how they get to me and how I direct them to a specific page on answering that question, because if they click Sapient Dynamics, how do I stream the different landing pages for that question? That's what I understood.
So I would suggest there's a few elements to it. So there's, in terms of the search terms, if you're looking at that broader search term, you would have a landing page on employment contracts, what to consider when creating an employment contract. And so that would be optimized for the key search term, whether that's employment contract or what they call a long tail key phrase, such as how do I create an employment contract, or key components of an employment contract, or whatever that search phrase is that we can do with some SEO research, that's going to drive traffic to that page of employment contracts. And on that page, it says, here are the key things. So let's say the long tail phrase was, how do I create an employment contract? And you might then have a page going, employment contracts, and it could have an FAQ section. It could have a checklist, things to consider, the different types of contracts, the essential elements of an employment contract, the optional things depending on the industry or type of business, or all those little nuggets of wisdom that from your professional experience are the small value adds to go, oh, I didn't consider that thing. I saw this template, but it was so generic. I was going to go with that, but actually those things are important to me and I do need to consider them in this particular product or service delivery. And so it's just one of the best ways of finding out where those niche search queries or terms are is in Google search, funnily enough.
Getting that part. What I don't understand, I've asked the question, when I look down for how do I get them to the landing page? How do I come up on the search?
By doing all of those. So Google's algorithm to rank a page is based on a number of criteria. It can be around the speed and performance of the website. It can be around the previous search traffic on that particular term that has driven traffic to the site, that they have stayed on for longer, or they have viewed more pages or engaged with the content further. It can be around a number of factors that in the SEO workshop that I'm doing, I think it's next week, I'll cover more of the actual ranking factors and how to optimize each part of that. But by undertaking all of these SEO activities, Google then sees in a more favorable light, or there's two factors, a domain authority and page authority. Domain authority is overall, how valuable is this site in terms of people engaging with the site and its content for the whole site. And then you might have specific pages of your site that you can identify in Google Analytics by the entrance page results. And that's where is the traffic entering on the site. So those pages are starting to rank higher than others. And so
but that's what I don't understand, because if I've got a link and it says Sapient Dynamics, like I've done a search for something and I come up as a business listed, and I won't be at the top, but I'll be somewhere in there, right at the end at the moment. But let's just say by chance they do see me listed. They click on it. doesn't that just go straight to the home? Like, how do I make sure it just doesn't go to the homepage? How do I get the exact page? Or does Google work that out?
Google works that out. And so basically it is around the actual, Google has this magic algorithm.
The description of the pages.
This is the most relevant page. Now,
right, okay.
The way that you do that is optimizing the keyword or the SEO performance
now I get the connection
for that employment contract page. So when someone types in employment contract or whatever that long tail search term is, that employment contract page is the one that ranks, not the homepage.
Yeah, okay, I get the connection now.
Dynamics, the homepage is going to be up there.
I thought I had to do something, but it's Google doing it based on the words.
You do in a sense, and that's just doing things like connecting the Google marketing platform. So Google Search Console will tell you what people are searching for, any technical errors. It gives you kind of a baseline performance for how search is working for the business. It also has things like a sitemap. And a sitemap is something that the Google crawler will look through to see how the website's structured and what content's on there. And then it will navigate to each of those links to evaluate its relevance for the search term. And it indexes those frequently so that when someone types in a search, it's got the magic boiling pot of all the different websites in the internet, and it serves up the most relevant results. Now, that's the first part of the Google marketing platform. Then there's Google Analytics, and that's when we can look at, okay, well, when we get visitors to the site, we've seen how the search performance is going and how Google's crawling our site. When we get traffic to the site, where are they landing? What channel sent them to the site? How long do they stay on there? What's the path they take through the website before they leave? And you can start doing things like tracking goals of, when we get people to this page, the goal is that they book an appointment. What are the steps there? And so we can measure each of those steps, and you can see visually in Google Analytics, here's the number of people that visited the start of this funnel or goal that we've set up. Here's the people that made it through that lead capture process. Here's the number of people that, click the download link in the resulting page or click the booking link. And so mapping out that process of what the customer journey looks like, and then setting up Google Analytics to report on that process to see how well that conversion is happening. So there's so much data you can get out of Google Analytics. And part of the session that I run on the Google marketing platform also looks at, rather than trying to navigate around a system when you've got so much information in your head already, that there's all these filters and sections, is using Google Data Studio. Google Data Studio is part of that platform as well. And that creates a dashboard where you can customize it to your heart's content to show all of the key metrics and all of the key performance that you need to look at in one simple view, rather than having to spend all the time diving through Google Analytics. You can also set Google Analytics to send reports based on either a peak of a trend happening in a particular performance metric, or at a regular scheduled interval. So you can see on an ongoing basis how your digital performance is going. And that kind of complements quite well into this session in terms of how to set up in this race plan, look at the same structure of those 4 stages, what we're looking at measuring, and how to set up a race plan dashboard for each of those 4 stages. So you can see that, okay, well, we're getting improved search performance, which is driving traffic. We're getting traffic, but the lead generation process needs improvement, or we get leads, but we're not actually converting that through to that acquisition or whatever that goal is that is considered a conversion for you. And then the sentiment, the word of mouth, the engagement on social media is all that engaged stage. So the 4 sections can then be mapped in one visual dashboard that you can see at a glance, rather than having to try and find where's the stuff that is an opportunity that I can capitalize on in this minefield of data in Google Analytics, and where are the things that aren't going well. Like, grab all of those key metrics and put them on one visual dashboard. So that's part of what the next session will cover.
Okie dokie. These are recorded so I can access them anytime if I can't make it. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, yep. And in fact, on our Business Station YouTube channel, there is over 500 videos now on all manner of topics. And we'll start streaming those into particular areas or topic clusters so that they're easier to find. But there's a wealth of resources and past workshops and webinars in that library.
Okay. Right.
Okay, I will send through the resources and this slide deck so that you can look through it at your leisure. I'm sure you have some business matters to get onto with your newly awarded contracts, which is fabulous news. And feel free to hit me up with any questions and we'll go from there.
Okay. Thank you.
See you later.
Bye. See you then. Bye-bye.